Well, here we are broadcasting live from IoT World and AI Summit, and with me today, I'm happy to say, we're just off the roundtable stage, Branham, Chief Technology Officer of Peachtree Corners. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Chuck.
So we just did a fireside chat. Give me kind of the highlights of what we talked about there.
Yeah, I think a great opportunity to talk about how Peachtree Corners and Curiosity Lab are helping, design, develop, kind of lay the groundwork for helping other cities across the U.S. and the world on how we implement some of these smart city technologies and how we scale them to better serve our communities.
And at Peachtree, which is near Atlanta, you decided to go end to end. Talk about that a little bit.
We did, yeah. So we started with the base connectivity infrastructure, right? So we've got fiber, we've got 5G through our partnership with T-Mobile, and then you start to build the application sets around that. So then you bring in, the video as a sensor, connected vehicle technology for vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to infrastructure communication, trash sensors, right? We have trash sensors at our downtown. We're doing smart parking analytics, but all that laid by the foundation of connectivity and public-private partnerships to drive this forward.
And you've got a shuttle there by Beep. We're actually going to be interviewing Beep shortly here. So tell me about the Beep shuttle that goes up and down your road.
As in the transportation arena, the last middle mile has been the hardest thing for public transportation, just to be able to fill that need. And so we've been looking and evaluating purpose-built autonomous shuttles that cover that sector for public transportation over the last year through our partnership with Beep. So they maintain, operate, control all of the day-to-day for that. Runs on our 3-mile section of roadway where we're validating the feasibility of it, right? How do they operate in real life? Because this is a public lab that's interacting with human drivers, and then building on the additional safety of CV to X technology. So communicating from the shuttles to our infrastructure, doing things like signal preemption to increase efficiency of the shuttle through the operation. And then we're just finished up one with Navia, that's the shuttle manufacturer, and now we're going to Ollie, which is robotics research platform. So we're getting to see these different variations in software.
So what about autonomous cars? Any testing of that there?
So not yet. We've had ADAS, Advanced Driver Assistance Systems testing. We will, hopefully, in Q1 have a full kind of robo-taxi, what people are traditionally used to seeing with Waymo and Cruise.
So will that be outside of you have a private autonomous vehicle lane, will this be outside of that?
This will be outside of this, so we'll really start to merge that gap of being able to go anywhere outside of predefined routes. And what we're going to look at, right, is connecting this to some of our senior living centers, getting them to the grocery stores, getting them to the pharmacies, providing that alternative transportation for them.
So do you have companies that want to test besides the Beep shuttle kind of thing? Do you have other autonomous things that want to be tested, like last mile delivery things?
Yeah, so we've got a couple in the delivery, so that's actually, this last week's been a really interesting development in last mile robotic delivery, right? Amazon backed out of it, FedEx backed out of it.
Why do you think that is? Is it too hard?
The market is tough, just from feasibility, from scaling that, because you need dense urban environments. It's kind of the same struggles that micromobility faced when they started rolling out, is the technology advanced before the policy, and then they collide. These big companies got to turn an ROI pretty quickly, and this is still emerging technology, so figuring that out. But we've got others that are working on last mile networks underground, so hopefully we'll be talking to you soon about that. And then as we think about drone delivery, right? That's another last mile connectivity. We're working with some companies in that space, both from a delivery aspect, but also the delivery and the receiving end of that.
And what about electric vertical takeoff landing vehicles?
eVTOLs, yes, great question.
You have to bring that up.
You do. We had a good conversation with the companies that are looking at the ports. The industry is similar to the drones, right? There's still a lot of unknown in the FAA regulation of it. Who controls the airspace? How close can you get to the airport? What's the real use case around it? Is it a jumper from Atlanta to Nashville to the coast? I think there's still that development around it. Lake Nona's getting ready to build their first vertiport. So I think we'll start to see that transition, but still very early on.
So would that logically, in the US, start at a smart city like a Peachtree or at an airport?
Yeah, I think it's going to be what municipalities open to it, who wants to say yes. I think you'll see that more on your emerging cities who are really looking to advance these different types of transportation and smart city initiatives. So I think you'll see it there. But it's really going to come down to who's going to say yes, who's going to take the risk, because it's still an unknown market. So someone's going to have to take that risk.
So what else are you looking at that's kind of yeah, like you have to be looking at everything.
Yeah. So EV, obviously EV and EV infrastructure is a big topic of conversation right now. How do we manage the oncoming plethora of electric vehicles that are going to hit and bring a new demand on the grid? So how do we start to look at sustainable options to do that? So we're in the process of building a 2.6 acre multimodal hub that will have a focus on sustainable EV charging as well as grid, building a microgrid system. Also working with a company to put sensors underneath the asphalt. So as we start to think about long-term build out of infrastructure of roadways, can we manage that with more information both underground and then above ground? Because as we talked a little bit about, semis have a different impact on your road than a typical car. And then an electric vehicle is going to have even less impact because you're not dripping oil, you're not dripping some of those mechanical fluids that a normal car does, which wear and tear, but being able to get the data around that's going to be necessary.
So the solar roadway you're testing, the solar panel that's built into pavement, that's charging an EV charging station, isn't it?
Yeah.
So could that be a potential, I mean, presuming it works, eventually, could that be a potential nationwide solution for charging stations?
Yeah, if it can hold up to the wear and tear of a vehicle, and that's what they're validating now. The company is, how long before this breaks and could cause damage to a vehicle. Probably only going to work in the southern states because the snow plow's not going to do too well on that, but a great application, right, to figure out can this be an alternative sustainable option for generating power.
So what tips would you give for any entity that wants to get either a company that sells technology or a community or municipality advice for getting into a smart city? Not necessarily yours, but to get going.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, what we're seeing a shift in is have that conversation. Right? Open the conversation with the private entities and the cities and local governments. A lot of times the traditional path was buy and sell. But that's changing. I think people are coming to the table to figure out, hey, we've got to work together to solve these solutions. So having those conversations and fail forward. It's okay to fail. Government doesn't like to fail, but you have to establish that mentality inside the operations. It's okay to fail as long as you're failing and forward in the right direction to make improvements.
So a year from now, we're sitting here having this conversation. What would we be talking about?
Oh, I think we're going to see a big shift in, parking, curb management, automation of parking. One of the things we're looking at is in a downtown, can I get out of the car and then the car parks itself? So automation of activities.
Mercedes would like that.
Yes, they would. That's a big product for them right now. Bosch is in on that conversation.
Of course.
The continued advancement of 5G and the applications that are building around it, right? We had a lot of the network build. The network's getting built very well. Now the application sides are coming onto it, so I think we'll start to see the emergence of that, both in retail hospitality. I think that's going to be a big focus on as retailers look to change the dynamic to get people into stores. So interactive, experiential retail, as well as private networks.
Well, I look forward to that conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.